Daniel stormed out of his office, his heart filled with frustration. His girlfriend had said something very horrible to him, and he couldn't shake off the anger. The more he thought about it, the more upset he became. He walked through the streets, trying to clear his head, but nothing seemed to help. Feeling hungry, Daniel spotted a small restaurant and decided to stop by. He ordered a meal, hoping it will help him calm down. But as he sat at the table, staring at his food, he realized he wasn't really hungry. He took a few bites, but his mind kept returning to the argument with his girlfriend. Why couldn't she understand him? Why did she always have to make things so difficult for him? He finished eating, though there was still some food left on his plate. Distracted by his thoughts, Daniel got up and left the restaurant, forgetting his wallet on the table. His mind was too preoccupied to notice. Not long after he left, a homeless girl named Angela walked into the restaurant. She hasn't eaten for days, and the sight of the leftover food caught her attention. She was very hungry, and she could barely think of anything else. The smell of the food was too tempting. Angela looked around and saw that no one was paying attention. Quietly, she walked over the table and sat down, her eyes fixed on the plate of food. She knew she shouldn't be doing this, but she was desperate. She reached out for the food and started eating, hoping no one would see her. Just as she took a bite, Daniel came back into the restaurant, having realized he had left his wallet. When Daniel saw Angela sitting at his table eating his food, he was very angry. Without thinking, he shouted, "What are you doing here? Are you stealing my food?" Angela was startled. She didn't expect anyone to come back. She looked up at Daniel, her eyes wide open with fear. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to steal. I was so hungry." Daniel didn't listen. His anger was too strong and he couldn't see beyond it. "That's no excuse. You can't just take what does not belong to you," Daniel shouted at her. "I haven't eaten for days," Angela tried to explain. "I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I just needed something to eat." But Daniel wasn't interested in hearing her reasons. All he saw was someone taking his food without permission. He couldn't understand how someone could be so desperate. "Leave," he told her, his voice cold and harsh. Angela stood up, tears filling her eyes. She apologized again, but Daniel didn't respond. He watched her walk out of the restaurant, feeling nothing but anger at the situation. After she left, Daniel sat back at the table. He picked up his wallet, but something didn't feel right. As he thought about what had just happened, a small part of him began to feel guilty. Maybe he had overreacted. Maybe he should have listened to her. But Daniel was too proud to admit that he might have been wrong. He tried to push the thought away, but the image of Angela's face stayed in his mind. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't forget the look in her eyes when she told him she was hungry. When Daniel got home, he was still frustrated. His girlfriend's words kept echoing in his mind. He picked up his phone and called her, thinking that maybe she had calmed down and that they could sort things out. They were supposed to attend a big party together the next day, and he didn't want any drama. The moment she answered, her tone was sharp and harsh. She wasn't interested in talking about the party or their plans. Instead, she made a demand. She wanted a large sum of money if she was going to attend the party with him. Daniel was shocked. He had been generous with her before, always making sure she got whatever she needed. But now, demanding money just to go to a party felt so wrong. He asked why she needed the money, but she didn't give a good reason. She only repeated her demand and then hung up. Frustration built inside him. He wasn't going to give in. There was no way he would pay her just to have her by his side at a party. But now he had another problem. He couldn't show up alone. It wasn't the kind of event where you arrive without a partner. He needed someone with him, and he needed to figure it out quickly. Sitting in his living room, an idea popped in his head. Angela, the homeless girl. She may not have much, but he remembered how beautiful she was, even with the debt and the struggle of living in the streets. If she could clean up a bit, she could easily be his date for the party. The idea seemed crazy at first, but the more he thought about it, the more it made more sense to him. The next morning, Daniel got dressed and headed out, determined to find Angela. He wasn't sure if she would still be in the same place, but he had to try. Daniel searched for a while, scanning the streets where he had last seen her. Eventually, he spotted her, sitting at the corner where she often begged for money. Her face looked tired, her face worn out from the life on the street, but she was still there. As Daniel approached, Angela noticed him immediately. Her expression changed. She looked angry, clearly remembering their last encounter. Her eyes narrowed as he got closer. There was no smile, no welcome. She didn't want to see him again after how he treated her the last time. Daniel stood in front of her, knowing this wasn't going to be easy. Angela, I'm really sorry about what happened the other day. I acted out of frustration and I didn't handle the situation well, Daniel said. Angela crossed her arms, her eyes cold, filled with anger. Why are you here? She asked. I don't want your apology. I don't want anything to do with you. What do you want from me? Angela said. Daniel sighed, realizing her reaction was justified. I need your help, please. My girlfriend refused to go to a party with me, and now I need someone to go with me. I remember how beautiful you are, and I think with a bit of preparation, you'll be the perfect girl for the event. Angela blinked, then let out a sharp laugh. Wait, what? You think you can just come here after treating me like that and ask me to help you? She shook her head in disbelief. Daniel was desperate, so he pressed on. I know how ridiculous this sounds. I know I messed up, but I'm willing to make it up to you. I'll pay you whatever amount you want. I'm not interested, Angela cut him off, turning her gaze away. I don't trust you, and after how you yelled at me, why would I even want to help you? Daniel could feel the conversation slipping away. He needed a different approach. Please just hear me out, he said. I'm willing to pay you a lot, any amount you mention, Daniel pleaded. Angela paused. The thought of having a lot of money caught her off guard. She could eat, maybe find a place to stay for a few days. But her mistrust for Daniel lingered. Why should I trust you? You treated me like I was nothing, she said, her voice soft but firm. Daniel nodded, understanding her reasons. You don't have to trust me. Just think of it as a business arrangement. You're not doing this for me. You're doing this for the money, nothing more. Angela studied his face, still unsure. After a long pause, she finally spoke. Fine, but let's get one thing straight. I'm only doing this for money. This isn't about helping you, and it's definitely not about being your date. Daniel exhaled in relief. Deal. The plan was set, and now all they had to do was prepare for the party. Later that evening, Angela stood in front of a mirror, completely amazed at her transformation. The elegant dress Daniel had bought for her hugged her frame perfectly, something she had never imagined wearing. Her hair was neatly styled, her face glowing after a proper wash and some makeup. She hardly recognized herself. "I can't believe this is me," she whispered to herself, touching her reflections. There was a knock on the door and Daniel stepped in. The moment he saw her, he froze, his breath catching in his throat. "Wow," he whispered, unable to hide his surprise. He stared at her for a moment, speechless. "You look incredible," he finally said. Angela shifted uncomfortably, still not used to the compliment. "It's just the dress and makeup," she said. Daniel couldn't believe how beautiful she looked. They left for the party together, an air of awkwardness lingering between them. As soon as they walked into the venue, all eyes were on them. The room seemed to freeze for a moment as people whispered among themselves, their gazes fixed on Angela. She looked too stunning, and no one could believe that someone as gorgeous could have come with Daniel. "Who is that?" one woman whispered to her friend. "I don't know, but she is breathtaking," her friend replied, staring as Angela passed by. Daniel noticed the attention they were getting. Feeling a strange sense of pride, he leaned closer to Angela. "Everyone is looking at you," he whispered, smiling slightly. Angela glanced nervously. "I don't care. Let's just get this done and leave." As the night went on, the whispers continued, and people kept looking at their direction. But Angela kept her head high, determined to finish the evening and get her money. After the party ended, Daniel turned to Angela, grateful. Without her, the night would have been a disaster. He handed the large sum of money he had promised, and Angela accepted it, knowing it was more than what she ever wanted. She thanked him and walked away.